Welcome back to the Football Fitness Federation podcast. This is episode 292. I'm excited for this one today. I'm joined by the founders of FSCR, Dan and Dylan. Lads, how are we doing?
Good, mate. Good, mate. Thanks for having us, Ben.
Yes, Ben.
No problem at all, lads. It's great to have you on. Obviously, we were down at the facility quite a while ago now. Actually, time flies, doesn't it? But saw some of the great work that you guys are doing. So I wanted to reach out and talk about what you do, but also talk about the background behind both of you and the company as well. So we'll get straight into it. Dan, I'll start with you. Can you give us a little bit of background on yourself, your journey, and then just take us up to the point of FSCR, and then we'll get into that in a second.
Yeah, 100%. So, Australian, came over when I was 23 years old. Had an idea of thinking that I could play football over in this country, but was not even close to it. So I had to change my idea and went off to uni, started university, and just realized that if I can't play the game, then I definitely want to work in the game. Started off with a sports therapy degree, undergraduate degree, and then decided that if I wanted to get into football, I had to figure out what's the best way of giving me the biggest advantage over anybody else who wants to work in football. So I decided to go work in athletics. Got some experience working in athletics for about 3 years. Was working with GB sprint team, 100, 200, 400 meter athletes. Realized that, working with that type of athlete, they're at the top of their game. So if I can do and learn a lot from those guys and then bring that to football, hopefully that give me an advantage. So did that, got an internship at West Ham before the EPPP started, quite a while ago now, 2012, I think it was. And got a full-time job in the academy. Started working with the 23s, was there for 2 years and then went to QPR. Was a strength and rehab specialist at QPR whilst I was doing my master's at St. Mary's in S&C. And then from there, was there 3-4 years in that role. And then the final 3 years at QPR, I moved into the head of performance role, and then decided to do FSCR. So that's me.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll extend that in a little bit. Dylan, can you do the same for us, mate?
Yeah, similar type of journey in a sense, failed footballer. So pursued that early on whilst I was studying through school and then in university as well. So I played in the League of Ireland back home. At that point, then got to a point where I realized again my trajectory maybe wasn't going to take me to the level that I wanted to play at. So next best was to work at it similar to Dan. So I was studying the University of Limerick doing my master's, and then during that time, I had a dissertation at the end of the year. So, as an aspiring professional, I tried to use that and came over to England, and that's when I linked in with QPR, took on a first team internship role, and wrote my diss with the team. So that was kind of my way in, if you like. That was a little bit unique for me at the time. Prior to that, I had some experiences in different clubs. I spent a little bit of time in the US in a gym with Mike Boyle, so he was an early mentor for me. But then it really kicked off for me when I came over to QPR. I did my internship year, like I said, and then after that, spent a season in the academy doing the 9s to 16s role. And then the following year after that, I got the opportunity to go back to the first team, and then I spent, I think it was 7, 8 years in and around the first team, primarily as a sports scientist. But as people will know, there's many different roles and different hats you wear on a day-to-day basis. So that's kind of my journey. And it was at QPR that obviously professionally speaking, me and Dan met and connected, and it kind of led to where we are now.
Awesome. No, that gives a really nice indication of obviously taking us up to that point. So when was the decision made that you were going to step away from full-time employment at a club and set something up? And did you know what that was going to be at that time? Or was it just a case of we want to work with players in this environment? Let's see what we can do.
Yeah, I had a situation because I was doing a lot of rehab at that time at QPR, and it was probably about 2 years after I started at QPR. And I had a situation where a couple of players who had left the club contacted me and said, "Look, listen, I'm really struggling with an injury. I don't feel like I'm getting the support I need at the club I'm at right now. Would you be interested in helping me out outside of club hours?" And I thought that was really interesting. And at this point in time, the whole players working away from clubs, I think this was in when was this? About 2017, 2000, yeah, about 2017, 2018. So quite a while ago now. Players, it wasn't well known for players to go and seek help outside of their clubs. Um, and it wasn't just one player; it was quite a few players who would get in contact, and then I started working with them predominantly online, working with the S&C, doing their rehab, whatever it may be. And just one thing led to another, where like, you know what, there's actually a market here. Some players, especially at lower levels, where they've been at a pro club and they've now dropped down into National League or League One, League Two, whatever it may be. Um, they need some serious support and they want some help and they're willing to pay for it. And that was kind of like a light bulb moment for me, especially. And I decided, right, let's see if there's some legs in this, and recruited Dylan, who's keen to get involved. And we started with online programming back then in 2017, and we realized that there's a high pickup with online programming, but it wouldn't last that long. It was hard to really connect with the player, really find where we could improve them, how quickly can we progress them, when do we need to regress them, and so we thought this needs to be done in person. So we found some gym space and thought we're going to go test this out. We found some gym space in East London, where a lot of players do live and come from, especially in London. And we rented that out 2 days a week, just for 4 hours on a Monday and Wednesday evening. And within a month or two, we were busy. We had players just word of mouth, one after the other, coming in for S&C. Then we realized they wanted to do physiotherapy, they wanted treatment, they wanted their rehab done there. It got to the point where it became pretty successful really quickly, that the gym that we're renting space from wanted to kick us out because we're kind of like taking over the gym. And so that's when we realized, we've got something here. Let's take this seriously. So we spent a good 2 years trying to figure out how we could open a location, a physical facility in central London, and that's just for footballers, which is no easy task.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating because there'll be a lot of people listening probably in similar positions to what you were in at clubs, thinking, oh, I'd love to do what you guys are doing one day. They might have been to visit the facility, or they might have just seen what you're doing online or know of facilities like it, but without knowing those steps that you went through, the online, then finding some space. We could probably do a whole podcast in terms of the actual transition of what the company's done over years to get to where it's at now. But yeah, no, I think that's really interesting in terms of that. I think, Dylan, what were the initial maybe challenges that you faced? Because obviously finding a facility, finding somewhere location wise that's going to work, that in itself is a huge task, isn't it? And then hopefully we'll maybe even attach some video to this at some point so we can show the facility that you guys have got now, because if people don't know, or they can check it out on socials. But it's super impressive what you guys have developed. So what were some of the initial sort of stumbling blocks, Dylan, or challenges that you faced in that time?
Geez, how long have you got? I mean, there was so much to it, and so many complexities and problems and difficulties that arose from doing this at the start. So at this moment in time, we were both in full-time roles, very demanding in the positions we were in. It was full on. So this was very much a side project or a side hustle, or something that we knew we wanted to build towards. So first and foremost, trying to deliver day to day with our primary roles whilst building this alongside of it, that was very difficult. Secondly, trying to, like you said, find space that would accommodate us for what we were doing. It was a bit different at the time, so that proved difficult. We do owe a lot to that first person that gave us an opportunity to build it. So that in itself was difficult. When we then found our initial client base and began to build it up, getting that phone call that day when we were told we probably have to move on from that gym, that was a problem in itself. The difficulties around finding people, buying into it. There's been countless problems that just seem to have gotten bigger as we've gone on our journey. But I think for me, going back to kind of what Dan was saying about how it started, it's kind of been born from our shared experiences, our shared painful experiences. And it's always been about trying to build a space that we would have wanted when we were growing up. And it's that kind of shared and collective mission that we're trying to achieve, that whatever problem has come our way, we've just tried to find the best solution as quickly as we can. So when we did get kicked out in that gym at Haggerston, again, the tenant was very kind. We just had a different time frame where we were away from people, so we made it work. As with a number of people who listen to this, there was the whole COVID situation that posed a whole host of problems. And just like other people, you just find a way to survive. Um, I mean, we talk about business lessons all the time. Like, first and foremost, it's about survival. So we just kept the brand alive, and whatever is faced, knowing from each other that we both have each other's back, and we both do genuinely believe in what we're trying to do, that you just make it work, and you find a way to get through it. So plenty of problems, but always a solution is kind of one of the things we speak about all the time.
Yeah, I love that. I think, like you've mentioned there, there's a big difference, isn't there, as well, between being a technician, a practitioner, someone that delivers and delivers to a high standard, like you've just mentioned before, working with players, but then being a businessman, being someone that's got to tackle all the issues that comes with running a business and being a director of a business. That's a whole different thing, which I'm sure we can tap into a bit now. But with that, Dylan, was that a case of learning on the job? Was that a case of setting something up and dealing with things as they came in, working together on it?
Yeah, for me, on paper, I do have a sport and business degree. Now, everything I learned in college, it's a different animal when you are in it. So there's things that admittedly we're both learning on the go, from financials to business structure to um, legal, like things that were all relatively new to me, that you have to put as much time and effort into that as, like you said, into the delivery as well. So we've tried to build as we've gone. One thing I mentioned is, when we, like I said about the shared vision, we do have a commitment to do this for the long term. So we've always tried to approach it, if we do build the foundations of the business correctly and spend the time to understand it in terms of what we're doing, that it will provide the foundation for us to grow over the years. And there is still things that we've taken our time with in those early years that we still use to this day, and we've grown on. So where we are now, it's only been in recent years. A lot of the work that we've done has been in and around that pre-COVID time and during COVID time. So that was a great opportunity for us to develop our business skills, which we're still constantly developing, but it is equally as big a part of it for us as the delivery side.
Yeah, obviously we saw a snapshot that evening that we were down, but one thing that sprung out to me straight away, well, a lot of things, but a couple of things that come to the forefront, was the fact that you mentioned before, the business is built on footballers, which anyone owning a facility will know that's pretty impressive to go niche to that sport. But it's also, and Danny, you can touch on this in terms of the culture that you guys have developed, because not only with the players, the staff, everyone that was working in there, they're obviously working to a level and they're coming in, they're ready to work. It wasn't a case of people just coming in and just doing extra to be seen to be doing extra. People were coming in with the mindset of what I saw anyway, ready to work, ready to get down to some serious work. So you guys have obviously led that. This might be the golden question, which might take a whole podcast in itself to answer as well. But in terms of creating culture in an environment like that, Dan, what would you say are some of the golden things that you've put in place?
Yeah, we talk about culture a lot, and we think it's massively important. I think it starts with the mission, the company mission, and you've got to start there, and then you start to recruit from there. So our company mission is to provide elite sports science and medicine support to footballers everywhere that is affordable, that allows everyone to train like a pro. And with that mission statement, we then build our values, our company values from that. And we have pretty strong company values. One of them being intelligent hard work. We're results focused, and that is also passed on to our players. So when you come here, we don't want you here for 3, 4, 5 hours. We want you here for a good 60 minutes to 90 minutes with your recovery to get the work done, where you're judged by the results that you get, not the amount of hours that you work. And we try and pass that on to our staff as well. We don't want our staff here all day, every day. We try and break it up so that when they do come in, they're really super effective and efficient, and they work with intelligence. So that's just one of the values that we have. We have, our biggest value is everything we do is for the player. So I guess that builds the culture as well, is that when the players come here, they know that everything we're doing is for them and for them to be the best they can be. And then that goes into recruitment as well, recruitment of staff. If you're going to come to FSCR, it's because you believe in the mission and that you want to help players be the best they can be. And that automatically builds a culture in itself. We're quite big on it. If people don't fit that culture, then they're not for us. And that is including members. So we've had to cancel a couple of memberships where people just don't fit the culture. Which is difficult for a business that's just starting up, where survival is important. But the culture, we believe, is what's going to build the brand, and the brand will be the biggest and most important thing at the end of the day, which will help us elevate us to that success we want to get to.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's so important. What do your roles look like now? Because we spoke about what you were doing at clubs previously. We spoke about sort of the initial idea stage of the business, getting things going, getting to work with players. But let's fast forward to now. Dan, starting with you, what does your role look like? I know we've got different titles, but we also know that means you wear a number of different hats as well. So what does your role look like, Dan?
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's because we're still, we're 2 years in now. We're just over 2 years in now. My role is kind of spread, but we're trying to get to that really narrow, focused. Our vision, our philosophy for this year, or our target objective, is to be, we have a saying, inch wide, mile deep. So everything we do, both from a company point of view and as a personnel point of view, we try and narrow that focus. So my focus at the moment is to direct the business, is to build and fix all the problems that go on behind the scenes. So and lead the company in the direction that we want it to go to. I still play a role in overseeing some of the rehabs, overseeing some of the S&C, but I'm trying to step away from that. Now we're starting to get some really good people in the door, which is quite exciting, because it means that we're heading into a growth phase of the business where I can now work on the business instead of working in the business. Which is massively important. So yeah, my role at the moment is director, and my day to day is to fix problems, make sure that everything is systematic and process led for all our staff to be able to deliver a really high experience for our customers, and that may include the day to day of some S&C and rehab as well.
Dylan, what about yourself?
Yeah, so mine is similar in a sense of just trying to juggle, like Dan said, being in the business and being on the business. So a typical day for me, so if I take the comparison between yesterday and today, so yesterday was a big delivery day for me. So we had an elite female football session at 9 o'clock. So they prepped, we had an elite session at 9 o'clock. We had a professional session on the grass. This is football. So elite women at 9. We had a professional session at 10. We had a semi-professional session at 11. I then had some pitch-based rehabs. And then during the middle of the day, so typically from 1 to 4, that's programming time. So lunch, program and notes, admin. And I'll also assist with the S&C caseload in the evening as well. So the evening then we kick off again, and we'll have a whole host of football sessions, S&C sessions, recovery sessions. So it was a big delivery day for me. And then there's days like today where it's more on the business focused. So a whole host of online consultancy work, business development, and speaking to people is a big part of my job as well. So just trying to have relationships with people, different stakeholders that we deal with, whether that's players, clubs, agents, whoever knows about us. I do an awful lot of that.
Yeah, just to give people an idea about the facility as well. Obviously, you guys have got the gym facility, which I know where a lot of the rehab and the work S&C work goes on, but you've also got the pitch access as well, haven't you? So where Dylan's talking about the football sessions there, that's obviously where that's taking place. And no, it was really impressive to come down and see how it flowed and how the work went on in the gym and the facility when we were down there. We touched there again on culture and the fact that both of your roles have sort of transitioned and changed, which they need to, don't they, when the brand and the company is developing. Hiring staff let's talk about this in terms of what makes someone stand out. Like we've there's going to be numerous people out there with masters, with degrees, with experiences at clubs similar to what you were when you stepped into when you set up the company. But Dan, when someone's come in and they're meeting you and after a job, what makes them stand out above everyone else?
They need to be a good problem solver. And that's probably the most important thing or quality that we're looking for. We want to be able to build a company that's so systematic and efficient in all the day-to-day stuff that needs to go on, that's kind of like eliminated. It's very automated for them. When a player walks in the door, whether it be for initial consultation, whether it be a rehab case or be an S&C high performance player, we want someone who can make really good decisions and can solve problems. So in our interview process, we recently hired a junior physio who we actually met at the conference in November.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So he came along, was very interested in the business, but obviously for the conference, we got chatting to him, invited him for an interview. Dylan prepped and just wanted to get to know him on a personal basis, get to know him as who he was. And then I came in and I gave him a riddle actually to solve. And I wanted to see how quickly he could solve it. And he did it within 5 minutes. So I was like, right, you're hired, you're done, it's done. So we want to find someone who's a really good problem solver, understands the culture. So having experience of working in football is important. We've had some people who come from private practice, some different sports, and it's good. It's a different perspective, but it doesn't quite fit. Our culture is so football specific that you have to have been in football to understand football, I think, and that really transpires here in what we're trying to build. So to go back to your question, problem solving, understand the culture, and be willing to grow and develop is another thing. Is like we are not standing still. We want to keep moving, and that is in all departments: personal growth, company growth, everything.
Do you add anything to that, Dylan?
For me, you might say we've got key sentences, key words, key messages that we always come back to. So one of the things that's always at the forefront of our mind is we speak about these different P's that we have. So we talk about in certain places, we have a team of people that follow processes to impact the player. So the place in this instance, and there's loads of examples, one place is the gym. So we have our space, like you said, and for anyone that doesn't know, we've got a gym floor, we've got a recovery suite, we've got a physio clinic, and a football pitch, an AstroTurf football pitch. And we've built a team of people that have the skills to deliver services, following our processes, to positively impact players in those 4 key areas around football, strength and conditioning, physiotherapy, and rehab. So the type of person that needs to be able to deliver that service in person is really important. So like Dan said, being able to problem solve and being able to follow systems and processes, but because it's in person, also being really authentic and buying into what we're trying to do and the experience we want the players to have when they come through those doors. Now that sentence can be applied in other elements of our business. So to give an example, we have a club that we're working with outside of the UK, and we're trying to develop some infrastructure within their academy. So across a wide range of teams, it's a wide scale project. So the place in this instance is an online space. The members of our team are, again, multidisciplinary. So I'm leading that project, but we call on physios and S&C coaches. We deliver processes online through different types of technology that we use, one being TeamBuilder, for example. And then again, we're trying to positively impact not just the player, but the club by putting in different types of infrastructure, different types of program, and different types of support for the players and stakeholders rather. And then the final one again is we have some high performing athletes, both male and female, playing in European football at the minute. So we facilitate a place where we have gone to them in the past, they have come to us, and we have a relationship online. So again, that's our senior members of staff will look after that, whether it's from a rehab, which we do alongside the clubs, or whether it's from a more performance point of view in terms of, I've got a couple of cases with match analysis. So couple of my hats. I've got an A license as well. So my bat sits in between gym and pitch. So the people are involved in that, again, are our senior staff members. And we're just trying to impact the player again through our processes. So that one sentence for us kind of encapsulates a lot of the different areas in the business that we can help players, really. And like you said, the whole question here was, it comes back to the people, understanding what people we need in order to deliver that.
And we speak a little bit about there's an obvious difference of the sort of employed to self-employed nature of being in a business or at a club. But can we speak about the work done with that player in those two different environments, which you sort of know something that both of you are super experienced in? But what are some of those differences like for the people listening? There might be people at clubs listening or in a private facility listening. They might not have experienced the other side. So Dylan, what's your experience on that to start with, the difference from being at a club in a role compared to what you do now?
Yeah, I think again, there's a whole host of differences. I think it's different types of pressure. So in that professional environment, the pressure you are under is ultimately getting 3 points on a Saturday. So everything is geared towards that performance, and that in our world looks like availability first and foremost. So are the players able to be selected by the manager? Secondly, are they able to perform at a high level? So physically, are they capable to do what is being asked of the team? And then that dictates the results. And then everything around the result becomes important as well. So how you deal with that. And a lot of it is game to game. The space we were in was in the championship. So that was often every 3 days. So it's quick turnarounds and just being very clear about what you're trying to do and how you impact the players before and after the game. In terms of in our world we're in now, so in FSCR, in our private facility, we have a combination of players. So we have players that are performing at a high level that are game to game and play every 3, 4, 5 days. So there's still that focus. But we also have players that are starting out in their journey. So it's a bit more of a medium to long term focus where we can take our time. And a lot of what we're trying to do is give them an insight into professional training methods and build them over a longer period of time. So introduce them to professional S&C, allow them to understand what their body looks like, provide an insight into testing, and have that long-term player development approach. So they're two different sides of the coin, different pressures throughout, but the final factor as well is where we are. People are paying money as well. So we've got to provide value. We've got to provide results, like Dan said, and we've got to show progress as well. So similarities, yet differences all the same.
Dan, what's your experience with that?
Yeah, I think the biggest difference is that players are paying to be here, which brings a completely different mindset. We've all been in that situation where you're working in a club and 50% of players want to do the gym work, for example, or do the pre-activation, where 50% don't. And that's always been a challenge. It doesn't matter what club I've been at, what level I've been at. So that's really fun and exciting because you've got people who are on board from day one. And I think that's probably the thing that you would have seen when you were down was the culture was that everyone was here to work. As I had a performance, my role in a club became more not necessarily about the day-to-day delivery with the player, but the management of the manager, director of football, the management of players, making good decisions. And that kind of, I think, really put me in a good place, having that experience to then open a business, to manage staff, to manage investors, to manage different partnerships that we do have. And I think, yeah, like Dylan said, the pressure's always going to be there because you want to be the best, whether it be building a company or being a successful football club, but they are slightly different. In terms of the day-to-day, I think the hours are much longer having your own business. Gone are the days of finishing at 3 o'clock and, getting a gym session or doing whatever. Having 6 weeks off in the off season, no chance. So it's at the moment for where we are as a business, it's 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And that's the choice that you need to make before you go into a business. I think it's hard work. It's long hours. It's big sacrifices, and the reward is definitely not short term. It's a long term approach.
I mean, this is a massive compliment because 2 years, you said 2 years, right? The business has been running.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, because coming down and seeing the work that's being done, it doesn't look like a 2-year-old business. It doesn't operate. I don't think it operates like a 2-year-old business, does it? In terms of the fact that it seems so much more progressed on with that. 2 years is essentially not a long time, is it? So the work that you've done in that essentially small amount of time, even though it probably doesn't feel like a small amount of time, is seriously impressive. The team that's been built, the culture that's been built, the facility alone, 2 years in, it's exciting to see what another 2 years and beyond that will develop. So what are the next steps? If we're talking next steps in terms of the next couple of years, but then also longer term, how long do you look, Dan, in terms of looking into the future?
When we decided to build the business, we figured out exactly where we're going, all the way down to how we're going to exit the business. The reason why, thank you for the compliment. I appreciate that. It's nice to hear. The reason why I think we look so established just after 2 years is because we spent a hell of a long time before we opened the business trying to figure it out. I mean, we basically wrote a PhD. Our business plan is a PhD. We had a hypothesis, and we went to town on that hypothesis. Even to the point where we had a business mentor who worked with us on building a solid business plan. We spent a good 18 months, most of COVID, building that business plan, which would then be utilized to raise capital, bring on certain partners, bring on certain high-level board members, etc., to help us to get this off the ground. So to answer your question, how far do we look? We've always looked 10, 15 years down the road to how we want to exit the business. And so therefore we reverse engineer that and work backwards from there. What does the next couple of years look like? Right now, we've adopted a lean business model. So everything we're doing right now is an experiment. We're just collecting data. We're just collecting information. We're collecting everything we do, how do we put that into a system that we can then scale? The objective is to scale this across the world. We're very open about that. And in order to do that, we have to have a very efficient and effective business model that runs like clockwork, that can maintain brand standards and maintain a high quality of service delivery, especially working with footballers, which, it doesn't take much for a bad word to spread around a very niche population. So yeah, objective is I think we've got another 3 to 6 months here just to finish off this blueprint. And I think we're ready to open a second and third location after that.
Awesome. Dylan, you've mentioned before about some of the sessions that you have on. So that gives an idea about some of the players that are coming to see you. And obviously, they don't expect you to start naming names necessarily, but just give people an idea on the players that are coming into the facility and getting that work done, the sort of range of players that you've got.
Yeah, so we get asked all the time, why don't we do other sports? And like, it's always been just football for us, and that's the space we want to be in the best in. So the actual sport is the commonality, but in terms of the range of players that come and see us, it's really vast. So we've had boys and girls in our gym that play in the Premier League and the highest leagues in their country. We've had men and female that play in the Champions League, World Cups, different ages. So we've had elite level players, but then we also have boys and girls just starting out. So 12, 13-year-old boys and girls, grassroots, and everything in between. So that's elite level male, elite level female, semi-pro, amateur, grassroots, fit, injured, everything. So we've seen everything. You mentioned earlier what's, again, a difference between professional and private. Each season, working with the first team, our caseload or our player load is 20, 25 players. I don't know how many we have on our cards right now, but it's probably 10x that right now. So in terms of the number of players you're seeing and dealing with and interacting, it's really vast. And each is unique, each is different. So like you said, not to name players, but some of our elite level male and females, they've got a real performance problem, or we're providing a solution to their problem. Whereas that 12-year-old little boy or little girl, they're just starting out, so it's very different. So just trying to have a clear understanding of that. That's what makes us unique.
Can you give people a bit of an idea on some of the differences in terms of the program, the package that some of these players are on? Because I imagine grassroots, obviously, we're not so much about performance the weekend compared to a Premier League player that's managing a lot of game load and there's high pressure on that result. So what are some of the differences in terms of the packages that you and the staff deliver to those players?
Yeah, so in terms of the elite it's definitely more of a bespoke package. So that's very much through like a consultation process, if you like, trying to understand their performance problem, trying to see what gaps, what buckets we can fill for them and support it off the back of that. So that's bespoke, custom made to them. In terms of the opposite end of the spectrum, we'll have different membership options. So that might be the performance package where it's access to our gym, it's access to our recovery suite. They get their programming, they can do that once a week, they can come as many times a week as they want. And that's there for kind of boys and girls from 12 upwards. That's the fit side of it. There's also options to do football sessions. And again, that might be technical sessions, it might be group sessions. There's various different football sessions available. And then the other side of it is for the injured player. So again, it's come to us, we've got our team in place, we can help you. I think what we've seen is there's lots of really good S&C coaches, there are lots of really good physios, there are lots of good football coaches, but one of our unique things is we've got all those people under one roof. So in terms of the rehab journey, which Dan leads, it's been able to access all those different people under one roof that makes us probably a little bit unique at the minute.
Dan, what does the staff structure look like? We've obviously spoke about your roles at the company. You've mentioned some of the other people or roles that are available to the members, the players. But what does it actually look like in terms of numbers, in terms of those roles as well?
Yeah, so the facility runs off three key services. So football, S&C, and rehab. And for each one of those, like Dylan said, we have our elite members who are on bespoke individual programs, and the pricing is individual based on that individual. And then we have a membership option. So we have a football and gym membership option, a just a football membership, or just a gym membership. And then we have a rehab membership as well. So in order to facilitate all those services, we have a head physio who needs to have a couple of years experience, at least 3-4 years experience working in football. We have a junior physio that supports that head physio. We have a senior S&C coach. We have a junior rehab coach, or at the moment that's a rehab student. And then we have a football coach. So we have 3 senior members in the building and then two junior members in the building. And that would be the key staff structure across each facility. And then Dylan and I plan to sort of take a step away and then oversee each one of those facilities.
Yeah, that's what that was my next question in terms of what that was going to look like in the next one. So no, thanks for answering that. I thought I couldn't do this podcast with you guys without asking this question because I'm really intrigued around this. We spoke about this quite a lot over the last probably few years as private S&C support rehab has increased. The popularity has increased over the last few years for players. How do you find the sort of reception from clubs and practitioners at clubs? So if there's a player coming from X club and maybe they're coming on rehab, maybe they're coming for S&C for additional work, how are you finding that sort of communication with the club right now?
Really good. Before this podcast, I just got off a phone call with a physiotherapist from Middlesbrough regarding a player that's coming down to see us. I think transparency is the key. I think the fact that we've probably been around for a while as well probably helps. People have seen us once or twice, and it's not just these new guys that have turned up starting to work with players. But at this point in time, we're finding it okay. We've only had kickback from one club so far, which is pretty good considering how long 2.5 years we've been doing this now. So our process is that any person a professional who's attached to a club will get in contact with the club first, make sure that they're aware that the player would like to work with us. And then before we put anything together, we want to find out more about the player. Are they happy for us to work with the player? And by doing that, we've started to build a good reputation and some good trust among clubs to the point where now clubs would like to send their players to us in the off season, because they know that there's transparency there, there's trust, and the players are going to one place instead of going to 5, 6, 7, different locations or different coaches who they don't really know anything about. So at this point in time, the evolution of the game is changing. It seems to be evolving every year, every season. It's just more and more is happening, more and more things are changing. The more I speak to practitioners at clubs, especially in the Premier League, that 80%, 90% of their players have external staff now. So it is becoming a big part of the game. And for us as a company, it's just making sure that we do it the right way. We don't burn any bridges, we don't cross any boundaries, and we're just really open and transparent. And the response has been really good.
I think you brought some absolutely crucial points in there in terms of that trust and the experience, that essentially the results are there to be seen, aren't they, with the more work that you're doing with players. And that's where, because essentially players are going to do it, aren't they? They're going to, especially in the off season, they're going to do it. So for a player to come to someone like yourselves compared to some random personal trainer or whoever else they're going to see within a gym, it makes sense, doesn't it, Dylan, in terms of that choice. And I think I'll be intrigued to see how you think the future of it's going to go in a second. But just on that point, Dylan, like that's the key point, isn't it? The sort of relationships built, the trust, the proof that you guys have developed over that time. It gives quite an obvious transition for a player to come and see you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like Dan said, our experience, our reputation that we're trying to build, and I think just our acceptance that we're trying to support the club's player and the player themselves. So there's no ego or there's no flex from us in what we're trying to do. So we don't do our own thing. We do what's best for the player in collaboration with the club and the player themselves. And we're just an extension of clubs. And I think there's that growing acceptance that some of us people on the outside are just there to help, and we can be used as an additional resource by clubs and practitioners to support the player. Because, like we've all alluded to here, the worst thing that can happen is someone goes off and does their own thing, and ultimately the risk is too high when it comes to injury. It's very expensive, and no one wins in that sense. So it's just trying to be accepting of the role we play, and clubs accepting how we can perhaps be a resource to them. So I think that's increasing, if you like, and for players as well. I think having seen it from both sides, sometimes just being in a different environment outside of their training ground. I mean, they spend so much of their time there. A lot of the top clubs now are in 6, 7 days a week. So to have a day or an afternoon where you can go into a different environment, you're surrounded by different people. There's maybe different pressures or less pressures to perform or be a certain type of person in the environment. I think that's a good thing for the players as well, psychologically as well as physically. So I think there's a whole host of benefits, but it comes back to, like Dan alluded to, having that trust with the players in the clubs and the people in the clubs is really important.
I think that's a great point on the time spent at training grounds and within the same staff, isn't it? Like if you take any role in any sort of business, if a member of staff gets some time off, they're not going to spend time at work. So yeah, I think it's a great point. What we'll do now, we've had a few questions sent in, so I'm going to bring these up and then we'll tackle some of these. I was going to ask something else and it's completely gone, so it might come back to me. So if I ask a random question in a second, that's why. But let's just tackle some of these. So we've had a few questions. The first one, let's go for Dan. Do you want to take this one? What are your thoughts on ACL injuries or the increase of ACL injuries being due to Astro?
Yeah, absolutely. So I haven't seen the data. I haven't seen if there is actually an increase in ACL injuries. I don't know if you have.
No.
Is there an increase, or is it just more popularized now with social media and it's being really highlighted in the media? I'm not sure. I'll hold my hands up. I haven't looked at the data, but anyway, new ACL injuries. We are currently seeing 22 ACLs in our rehab at the moment, which is huge. I think I only worked with 3 ACLs in my career. which was a good thing, yeah, at a club. But here, obviously, the more ACLs we see, the better we should be at rehabbing them and collecting data and figuring out what works. The youngest that we've got is a 12-year-old, which is phenomenal, which is crazy, which I've never heard of. So in that instance, yes, there seems like the ACLs are getting younger and younger. In this country, coming from Australia, everything's on grass. I never played on Astro in my life in Australia. So coming over here, everything seems to be Astro. Is Astro the cause of ACL injuries? Possibly could have an impact. I don't think it's the be all and end all. I think it depends on the type of training. It depends on the footwear you're wearing. It depends on what type of session you're doing. A lot of ACL injuries occur due to fatigue. So are you training for too long, 2 hours? That doesn't matter whether you're on grass or Astro, that's going to open you up to injury anyway. I think you got to be clever. I think as a private company, we've really struggled to find good grass, especially in the summer for off-season program. We have managed to find it, which was really difficult, but it's very hard to find grass. So if you can't find grass, what are your options to improve and play as a player? If you're not a professional club, it's very limited. It requires Astro. I think you just have to be clever about what you do. Don't train for too long. High quality training sessions. Wear the right footwear. Make sure that your periodization is right. You're not going into sessions fatigued. Make sure the contact is correct. No silly tackles, no slide tackling, that sort of stuff. And do the work around around football. Do your S&C, do your activation, do your testing to identify weaknesses. I think we probably have to do more to prevent ACL injuries as opposed to just blaming it on Astro. That's my point of view at this point in time.
100%. Anyone listening that has got any data on that, send it over, and I'll share it with the lads, and we'll maybe get another podcast on discussing that. But Dylan, have you got anything else on that?
No, I think Dan's hit the nail on the head there in terms of leading our rehab provision. He kind of sees it all, and it's been scary for me to see, like Dan said, 12-year-old boy all the way up to 30-year-old men. So it's prevalent across all ages. We've seen different incidents in terms of how they've occurred, where they've occurred, why they've occurred. So it's so wide ranging. I think Dan's done a good job. But there's no one causative factor, as we know. It's just a multitude. And I think if we can, as practitioners, make players more aware of those things, that can only be a good thing. Whilst we still dive into finding some of the causative factors.
Brilliant. Dylan, I'll stay on you for this one. So, suggestions for preventing burnout in a full-time performance role.
Yeah, that's a real thing. It's a real thing. We speak about the demands. Like I said, a lot of clubs now are in 6-7 days a week. The congestion of games, even just everything around the games, the traveling, the commuting, the early starts, late nights, especially for staff. I mean, it's extremely difficult for players who are actually playing the game, but for staff as well. As people listen to this now, there's so many hours that go in around the clock. Ourselves as S&C coaches, before, after games, physios, doing those hours in hotels with clinics and staying late and doing all that kind of thing. Analysts, so it's a real thing. It's very difficult. I think having a big team is really important. Over the years, having bodies that you can call on in your department. So when there's opportunities or days where you can rotate roles and responsibilities, that's really good. I've been in departments where it's just been a two-man band, so it's very difficult to do everything. I've also been in departments where there's 4, 5, 6 bodies, so you can offload that work amongst each other. I think it's tough from a social point of view as well, which adds to burnout. So being in a small department, you do miss out on social things in life. So I've missed weddings, I've missed stags, I've missed birthday parties because of football. So having a bigger department where you can have those things, I think that just psychologically plays a role on the practitioner as well. I think trying to take your time when you can take your time. So Dan mentioned one of our values is intelligent hard work. So when you do have to work hard. But when you do have time to switch off and enjoy yourself and spend time with family, I think it's really important that that's maximized. And I think it's just probably understanding yourself. a little bit more, and the people around you. So at this stage, me and Dan have been side by side for nearly 10 years now. So he knows when I'm a little bit off it, whether that's sleep or mood, and I certainly know when he's off it as well. So it's just having that relationship to nudge each other and say, like, listen, you might need to take a few hours here or have tomorrow off, and just switch off, because I think admittedly we've both been in those periods where we've probably gone too far. And it takes time to come back from that, as opposed to taking the day, switching off, just forgetting about work for a minute, and then coming back the day after and putting your foot down again. So yeah, long-winded answer, but having people around you in terms of bodies and having good people around you would be the two that I would look to first.
Dan, I'll just extend that to you into currently the role that you're in now. What's your sort of approach, apart from Dylan telling you that you need to go and take a day off? What's your approach now to managing that? Because you said before, having a business and the sort of growth of the business as well, you could easily be working 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, couldn't you? You could fill that time. So what's your process for that?
I was hoping that you would ask Dylan this question. I didn't have to answer it, but now you've come to me. It's a bit of you've killed me here. Shit, I'm a little bit different to Dill in that I'm not sure. People talk about work-life balance. I kind of don't necessarily believe there's such a thing if you want to achieve extraordinary things. I think there's a period of your life where you have to suck it up and you have to give it everything you've got, and that means sacrificing relationships, friendships, nights out, sometimes family time, whatever it may be. I'm in a fortunate situation where, unlike Dylan's got a young family. I don't have a young family for that reason, because I've made the decision to actively try and go as hard as possible. In order to do that, yeah, hopefully it doesn't have to last for too long. The idea was to go as hard as possible for a couple of years and get to a position where you don't have to do that. But that's an active decision I've made. I don't recommend it for everyone, and it's definitely not for everyone, and it's something that you can't just do overnight. It's we've been building this for a very long time, alongside very pressured roles, in clubs. So it's something that you develop and that you build, just like preparing for a marathon. You can't just, most people can't just go out and run a marathon and have that endurance capacity. You've got to build it up over time. So that's what we've definitely done. And now I can handle a lot more workload than maybe what I could do 3, 4, 5 years ago. And some of that workload is just making big decisions when you're tired, and being able to handle that and figure that out. And that's not always easy to do. But yeah, I'm not a big believer in balance at certain times in your life. Is my answer to that. So I believe go as hard as possible if you want to achieve some crazy results.
I think you've made a great point there, though, because I think when people talk about work-life balance, they expect you to be speaking about working for this time, having this amount of time for as free time and all the rest of it. But I think something that you brought up there is work-life balance in itself. It's you made a decision that you're going to push, and that's the decision you're making at that time. But there's also going to be, it's not just pushing for the sake of pushing, is it? You've got an end goal. You're pushing for a reason. So I think that in itself, for me, is, and I know there's some people that might disagree with that. I personally kind of agree with it. I think there's definitely something within that, and I think it's probably different because you own a business. You sort of understand that side a little bit more. When you're in an employed position, I think everything that Dylan spoke about is very important because it's an employed role. I think being self-employed is different, isn't it? Like when I know there'll be processes in place to try and restrict this, but when you stop, the business can stop, or the development of the business can stop. So you want to keep pushing, you want to keep driving it on, and I think it's a really it's a fair answer to that question. I think it does answer the question as much as you probably think it doesn't. I think it does. I think it's a great point. The other question we got, and this is possibly just you signing up a new member to the gym, is someone asked, if you're a 15-year-old baller, how do they get involved? Do they have full-time programs?
Dylan's the people person, so there you go, Dill.
There you go, Dylan.
Yeah, of course he can. Any age, any level, affordable, accessible, that's our bat. So yeah, like we're always on the lookout. So just hit us up on Instagram, download the app, get in touch, and yeah, it'll be me who speaks to. So I'll look after them.
Yeah, so the process we have is we have an app where players can download, and on that app they can come in for a taster session, £1 taster session, and then from there we kind of explain to them their options and what we can do and how everything works. So we try to streamline that as much as possible. Please come down, all welcome.
Lads, that was absolutely awesome. It was great to dive into it. I know we're probably not, there's loads of additional information and topics we could dive into, and hopefully we'll maybe get another podcast at some point to tackle some of those. But just hearing about the background and the story that's led up to where you're at now, and also the future plans as well, I think is super, super impressive. And yeah, congratulations on everything you've done so far. Will you give people just a contact or somewhere to go, the socials, if they've got questions, if they want to inquire?
I'm the social guy. Yeah, I think these are really good. We're, like we kind of said off air, we're really open, really transparent. We're always looking to meet new people, whether that's players or different practitioners at levels. So for anyone that is out there that does want to get in touch, the best way is probably our Instagram. It's probably where we're most prominent. So FSCR TV, just reach out there. Our email, we can maybe share info@football.scr. Our website, yeah, all the normal platforms we're present on, and we're always looking to connect with new people. So that would be good.
Final question, which you can tell me that it's a secret for now if you want. Where's the next one, Dan?
If anyone's been following our Instagram, we've leaked 1 or 2 posts recently, so I'm going to keep you guys guessing for now. I'll keep it guessing.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Lads, that was quality. Thank you very much for coming on. I really appreciate you giving the time and coming up and being so transparent as well on everything that you've done so far. So I really appreciate it.
No, thanks, Ben. Really appreciate the opportunity, mate. It's been fantastic.
Cheers, Ben. Thanks very much.